This is Death or Prison, brought to you by leanonmeusa.org. We bring you stories of hope and encouragement.
Hello, everyone. This is the Death or Prison podcast brought to you by leanonmeusa.org. I'll be your host today, Raul Lopez, together with my co-host, Oswald Newbold. And we have a great segment for you today. We have our distinguished guest, Alonzo Dixon. Welcome, my brother. Welcome.
How you doing?
I'm good. You're talking to us all the way from where in Texas?
In Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas. And it's a pleasure to have you here. What do you think, Oswald?
It's great to have you here. We've been hearing many great things about you, your powerful story, but we have a large audience. We believe that they should hear your story. And thank you because you sent out so many inspirational and positive words.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen. A lot of people get out of prison, Alonzo, but to actually be given back and making an impact in the kingdom, that's what we're all about. So, Alonzo, I know you've been through a lot. Tell us about your childhood, where you grew up, and so on.
I was born on an Army base in San Antonio, Texas. My moved to Los Angeles, and my dad got divorced. And so you had a single mom trying to raise kids in South Central Los Angeles. That's not an easy task.
How old were you then, Alonzo?
I was I think I was 5 years old.
Okay.
When I'm 5 years old. And trying to grow up in South Central, a lot of people don't understand that this is a world where there's only two type of people, sheeps and wolves. I just wasn't feeling trying to be a sheep, so I became a wolf. It was survival. It wasn't that I set out to be that way, but when you live in that type of environment, being a wolf was the best way to go. So that's what I became.
Yeah, we can relate. In fact, Oz, I know you can relate in the neighborhood you were at, and the way I grew up. Not that we want to be tough guys or whatever, but what was going on in the neighborhood, that's what we seen.
Yeah, it's products of our environment, they tend to say.
The way I see it is, let's just be honest. Where I grew up, it's robbery, rape, murder, death. I mean, that's just the way life was. And you become immune to that. And not that, like I said, it wasn't that I wanted to be that way, but when you live in this environment, bullets flying every day, police every day, beating, stabbing, I mean, you become so tuned out to that it doesn't bother you anymore. And I think that's where Satan really took a hold, because human life by the time I was 12 years old meant nothing to me. It was just the way life was. You fit in or you didn't. You get out the way or you get ran over. That was life.
And you said by 12 years old, life didn't mean anything. That's real young to have that type of attitude and mentality. What were some of the things that you were getting into that got you into trouble at that early age?
Well, when you have a single mom and she has 5 kids, food was scarce. So I wanted to help, but I think by helping, I really stressed her out more, because I began to rob people to help feed my brothers and sisters.
At 12 years old?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there on Avalon, San Pedro, where we grew up at, and Dinker, in them areas. Like, it was a world where the have and have-nots. And so I basically, I would even steal bikes to go over to white people neighborhoods just to rob them, to bring the money back so we could at least have some sugar with our cereal. I mean, I didn't start out to try to make it, I I was just an evil person. But I couldn't see my brothers and sisters not having, sugar for cereal or a bologna sandwich, little small
That's right.
things. But those things escalated when you start seeing, your mom. I hate to say it this way, but she had to become what she didn't want to be, doing things that she didn't want to do, selling herself, the things that to feed the kids in that house. And that bothered me a lot. And that just made me more and more hateful towards society, because I had to see her struggle to the point where it was just unbelievable, the things that she would have to do. And I'm pretty sure you can understand that when you seeing guy after guy come and go, I begin to rob them.
Yeah.
When they live, I'll just tell you a story. That's how I started my first car theft. Guys would come over my mom's house, they'd be in her room, I'd take their car. If they wanted it back, they had to pay for it. You was paying her, you got to pay me now. That's the way I saw life. It wasn't trying to be tough or nothing, but that's the law of the land.
That's
Strong
right.
survive. And so I took what I needed to take. So I didn't care about whether me and my brothers had good shoes on, but when you got sisters, they can't walk around with dirty clothes on, and they need pretty barrettes and clean clothes and clean panties and stuff like that. And that's living in South Central. I mean, that's just the way life had to be.
That's
so
right.
I did what I had to do.
How many siblings were you? It was you and how many brothers and sisters?
I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters.
2 brothers and 2 sisters.
Older brother, older sister, and a younger brother and younger sister. Unfortunately, because of gang violence, my little brother's passed.
Okay. We'll talk about that. But at 12 years old, was that the first time you got arrested for something?
At 12, yes,
at 12?
Sir.
Walk us through that a little bit. What was it that happened at 12 years old? Because I tell you, there's a lot of people that watching, those of us who have done time and lived that type of lifestyle, we could understand. But there's an audience that will say, my God, 12 years old, he's arrested and he's robbing people?
At 12 years old, me and my sister, I had a 25 automatic, and my sister was called, I don't. Can I say the words or not?
Not the bad word, but
she was called NB, and I just turned around and shot the kid. She's probably 14, 15 years old, and it didn't even faze me. I was trying to get my older sister on the bus so she could get to cheerleading practice. Without thinking, I just shot it.
And by the way, let me throw this in there real quick, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but this is important. We always say, and we'll talk about it amongst ourselves, it's not a black thing, a white thing, a Hispanic thing, it's a Jesus thing.
Yes.
But let's be real. This is society out there. There were things there was racial tension or whatever, and I know that's not what you're about today. What you're expressing today is what we went through, because there's a lot of love in the man we're talking to right now, Oz.
Yes.
And but that's what happened. Okay, continue.
That's what happened. And so I went to Los Angeles Juvenile Detention Center downtown. At the age of, when I went in at 12, they was like, this kid's 12 years old. But they sent me to McLaren Hall, which is in Los Angeles, California. And McLaren Hall is a place for wayward kids. And my mom had to wait a year for me to get home. And, they kept me there and tried to rehabilitate me from that lifestyle, but it only just made me angry that I was locked up for defending my sister. And it just made me more and more angry. So when I did get home, by the time I was 13 and a half, I just became more violent. And it was at that time that I had a lot of homeboys, especially in South Central, and they were a lot older than me, and I wanted to be more in control, and that's how I got involved in the Crip gang at 13 years old.
So what I'm hearing here is, in your life growing up, there was economic hardship. I could tell inside, even as a young person, you didn't like seeing your family go through the economic hardships. And am I correct? Right. So you wanted to address that. Maybe not the best way to do it, but you just didn't like seeing your family suffer. Also, you didn't like to
Yes.
see your loved one be disrespected. Now you done went through a youth program and you're 13 and you just joined gang life. Was there
Yes.
something in particular you felt about gang life that was going to change what you were going through right then? What was your motivation at that time?
Let me just be totally honest here. Some people don't understand. I know that the way the gangs that people see gangs today, it's not the way it was back then. You know, in the neighborhood, you took care of each other. If someone's family was hungry, some other family would pitch in to help. People from the neighborhood, you know, as long as you was, you know, out there robbing and taking from others, but you would look out for your neighborhood. That's the way it really was. It wasn't about the violence and the gangs and the shooting that you see today, because a lot of these kids in gangs today, they think that that's what it's about, shooting and killing one another. You know, but in Crip, you know, it's a community revolution in progress. That's what this was about, you know, trying to protect the neighborhood. So I can honestly say that when I joined the Crip gang, that it was more of a family, and that was the first time in my life that I felt accepted. And because I felt accepted, I wanted to become more and more respected in this game, and I did whatever it took to earn that respect. And by the time I ended up being 14, more of the kids that were older than me, like 17, 18, were listening to me because uh, I had no sympathy toward anything but what was going on in our community. So whatever we needed to do, uh, that's what I did in order to bring money to the neighborhood. Uh, that no one in my neighborhood would be hungry, whether it was just taking over a whole bus and robbing everybody on the bus, uh, robbing restaurants with patrons in there, jewelry stores. It didn't matter to me, you know. But I shared what we took back in my neighborhood.
And it's people hear you say the way it used to be and not. I know you look a lot younger, but for our audience, he's 60 years old. You're 60 years old, right, Alonzo? So it was
Yes.
definitely different culture and everything within the gang community. So like you
Yes.
said, Crip, community revolution in progress. Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what this was about. You know, you have kids today, they don't know the culture or the real reason. And a lot of it has to do with also the media. You know, they played a big part in making it something that it really wasn't. And they put police against the gangs. And so when you have that, what you have is a disconnection. You know, I'm not trying to make it seem like it was good, because it really wasn't. I mean, there was a lot of deaths. You know, that's the way life was. You know, you live on the east side, you live on the west side. There, a lot of drugs came into play, and when the drugs came into effect, people started, you know, selling and making more money. But it wasn't about trying to become this big kingpin. I could show you people that to this very day that all they did was trying to feed their families. And did it cause a lot of hate and violence? Yes, it did. Uh, you did what you had to do to survive. You know, when you wake up and your little brother, your little sister's hungry, and there's only, you know, a box of Post Toasties right there, you know, and your mom to work 18, 19 hours on a dead end job, trying, you know, she doing the best she could with no education, you know, it becomes a sight you don't want to see. And so then turning to prostitution like she did, it really took effect on me, and I became the person that I became because of that. Her life was hard and it was horrible, and I just couldn't see that, and so I did what I did because of that.
And you know, Alonzo, you just touched a point. My mom passed away, but mom is a big deal for us, you know.
Yes.
And I can imagine at an early age, you seeing what she's going through, and it's degrading and it's humiliating. That hurts a child, you know. I can see where the rage and the anger comes from. And, you know, I want to commend you because you said not that it was okay, it was wrong. It's just the way it was. We're not justifying anything we did. If anything, we come before the Lord Jesus Christ and we take we become accountable for everything that we've done. So
Yes.
and that's what makes it successful to go on walking with the Lord.
Lonzo, could you do something for me?
Yes.
You're a teenager. You mentioned you're 14 or roughly around 14. Help us see those teen years. Help us push through those teen years, kind of what that looked like in a nutshell.
Yeah.
For me, I went to Washington High School in Los Angeles, off between Avalon and Dinker, which is a probationary school. If you've been convicted of a violent crime, you couldn't go to regular school. You had to go to Washington High, which is an all-black school, and it's a probationary school. Washington High is just to put it this way, not to try to make it sound bad, but Washington High is an all-Crips school. And you had to go to schools that you represented in your gang affiliation, because if you went to a blood school and you was a Crip, you'd be dead in a heartbeat. If you went to a Crip school and you was a blood, you'd be dead. So they had to. This is why I can't be mad at the police, because they did the best they could to try to separate the neighborhoods and put everybody in schools that at least they won't have a death every day. And so when you don't think about that then, when you look at it now, the police are only doing the best they could to try to minimize the death of young black kids. Some people look at it like they were really against you, but they really wasn't when you look back at it, because we were the one pulling the triggers, So all they tried to do was just at least be one less death, one less mother had to go to a graveyard. So growing up as a teenager, it was very, very I'm not gonna say it was difficult. It was just the way life was. You just, some kids play football, some kids play basketball. We had guys that could have been top tier quarterbacks in school, but because of their gang affiliations, they couldn't go. I played running back for Washington High, and I was probably in the 12th grade, probably out of 1 through 3 best running backs in all of Los Angeles. But because of my gang affiliations and my gun use, I was looked over. I was recruited. Fresno State. I forgot what it's been so long, but it was 3 schools. But once they found out my affiliation, everything was taken back. And once again, there was something that was taken from me, and it just made me more and more angry. And the more angry I became, the more violent I became. By the time I was 16 years old, there was nothing that I wouldn't do. It didn't matter. I'll give you an example. There was a guy from the west side. He killed one of my homeboys, and we caught his sister, and killing him wouldn't have been no good, but we needed to bring her to his sister. So my neighborhood gang raped the girl. It was just the way it was. To hurt you where you would feel it the most. And pretty soon that just became the normal. People didn't want to hurt you. They want to hurt your family. And that's, I think, where I became the monster I became at that point in my life. I think when I was 16, I became. And when I look back at it, I just thank God right now. I can't even imagine doing those things that I did to hurt a family. I just wish that, I remember this old lady. I took all her money just to hurt her grandson. And that lady died about, maybe a week later, because it was real cold. And I don't even think she had the money to pay the electric bill or whatever it was. But they found her dead in the house, cold in there. And to this very day, as God is my witness, that is, I think, the one crime that I actually feel remorse behind. That crime right there, taking the money from that old lady. I feel that every day. And I know God forgive me, but I still ask for, because I still can't forgive myself for what I've done to that lady. I still can't. It's, that was something that's going to ride with me till I die. That crime right there.
There was a lot going on with you at a young age. Well, we're going to step away from the bad. At that time, I know you referred to yourself as a monster at that time. I don't think you was a monster, but I think you're just saying what your mindset and behavior was at the time.
Yes.
I'll say at the time, the actions is a monster.
He's a
was
monster. Right,
yeah.
but I'm gonna tie something
But that's
in.
not your identity, right?
Right, because it's two things going on. I heard you say something about being in the 12th grade. So that means somewhere you value education, because you could have dropped out and just said, forget education.
You're right.
Right? So
Yes,
even
sir.
though we throwing the monster there, I see another side of a person there, even if he's not looking at it. Right?
That's right.
So
That's right.
so what, and I don't know if you could identify back then, what was some of the good things you think were in you, regardless of the outside circumstances of life? What was inside of you, or did you have dreams or what you wish you could have been doing outside of this? What was in you at that time? Because sometimes it manifests later in life.
And that was my grandparents. That's why I'm here in Austin today. In Austin, my grandparents, my big mom, my big daddy, was the only good thing in my life. And you got to go to school. You got to go to school. So no matter everything I did, my grandparents were always pushing. Just don't give up, boy. Don't give up, boy. No matter what you did, don't give up. So I could always write, and I began to write poetry at a young age. And at Washington High School, they had a poetry contest that was sponsored by USC College. And out of all the high schools from San Diego all the way up to Northern California, out of all high schools, I won first place in writing. And that was the only good thing I ever did.
That was a beautiful
back
thing.
then.
Yeah.
First place, not easy to get in anything.
Yeah, and, especially with all these people writing. But that, I think, was the thing that my grandparents installed in me, was to just, they was always preaching Jesus. So it's not like I didn't know. See, that's the thing about it. It's not like I didn't know Jesus, because my grandparents preached that. They had 70 years of marriage. They were married. So they were. My big mom and big daddy was the only marriage they ever knew. And when you were around them, you would be in church. You would read your Bible. You would know God. You would know Jesus. But that went out the window, and I was back at home. My family was, my mom's side, alcoholics, drug addicts. So I lived around that. But when you're around your grandparents, it's Sunday school or the belt, so you end up going to Sunday school.
That's it.
And so the only good thing in my life was my grandparents. They put that in me at a young age.
They planted that
grandparents did.
seed. Yes.
Yeah. And my big mama, I'll tell you this, I wrote about it. We was in her garden one day, and she was like, you have to dig deep down and pull it out by the root. She loved all these collard greens and mustard greens, but she had all this grass that would go around it. And I didn't want to pull no grass, so I'm out there just putting a little bit. And she would say, no, boy, you got to pull it out by the root, because if you just pull it out a little bit, it's going to grow back. And that, I didn't think about that till later. When I understood what she was saying, it became clear to me. A lot of things that my grandparents taught me, that seed that they planted, it took root in my life, and later on, as I got older, that root that she planted deep within me is still there. So like I said, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I knew Christ. I knew God, but I lived a different life. And that life that I lived, was because of the neighborhood and the environment I lived in, and the conditions in which I was forced to, adhere to. So that's where I stood at that time in my life.
Well, excuse me further quick. I'm glad you respected your grandparents, because no matter what, you still had that respect for them, but it was a different story back home. And
yes.
it leads me to ask a question. You got in trouble as a youth. What was your interactions with the law? Because there's no way you just running through the streets doing things and not have some contacts with the law. How was the legal battles looking? Were you running into anything with the law? And how old were you at this time?
when they had what they call the OSS, Organized Safe Street in Los Angeles, and once you have that number, uh, they got like Big Red. Big Red is what is the it was the gang enforcer at that time. Big Red was about 6'7". He was a big old tall white cop. I mean, he was big, man, and but uh, when he first locked me up, took me to juvenile detention center. He was telling me, "Man, you're too young to be doing this. You don't seem like a bad kid, and I'm gonna try to help you get you a chance." But I took that chance he gave me and just took it like, okay, it's a sucker. I got over this time, And so when he arrested me again, because that was a gang task force, I went to Camp David Gonzalez, which is a juvenile camp, and it's a lockdown camp, and it's in there that Dirty Red said, "This is where you gon." We call him Dirty Red because he's a big old, like I said, big old tall white dude. I mean, at least 6'7". A lot of the gang task force guys, these were probably ex-special forces guys that got out the military because they had to be tough to handle the things in South Central. But Big Red, he took a big liking to me. And when I went to Camp David Gonzalez, he said, "I hope you learn something here. And this is where you either learn to fight or give up." And man, he fights every day. These are young kids in here at this time. And it's either fight or get beat up. And you're just going to have to learn. And you got to go with it.
I wanted to back up a little bit because I think it's important. Just briefly walk us through, because you said, okay, I'm with the Crips, but what was the initiation? Did they jump you in? What did you have to do where you could actually say, I'm not affiliated, I'm a Crip?
On the corner of Avalon and big old donut shop. It's been so long since I've been to that street. There was a donut shop where a lot of cops used to hang out, get donuts stuff. And I just walked up to a cop car, just started unloading in it. Mm-hmm. Whether I don't know who was hit or who got hurt, who I didn't stick around to see, but in order for me to show that I wanted to be in the Crips, that's what all that jumping in and all that stuff, people, that's not really how I go. You have to really perform. People want to know that you got their back. Anybody could just jump in, but a fight, that ain't nothing, but they want to know in the gun battle, are you going to be able to pull that trigger? And my thing was I had to walk right up to the police car, just unload it, and that's what I did.
How old were you, Alonzo?
At the time when I did that, I think I was 13.
13. 14. You remember the gun you used?
32 out of 32, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken.
Did you get arrested for that? Did they catch you for that?
No.
Okay. They didn't catch you that time. Were there any police officers or anyone in the cop car?
Yes.
Oh, there was?
Yes.
Did anyone get hit?
That's what it was. I just stick around to see that now. I ain't gonna lie to you. Yeah. I just stick around to see that part.
Right. What proceeded after that?
I not only wanted, I got a lot of respect, but I just didn't want to be a part of the game. I wanted to run the game because I felt like, a lot of those guys, they was just into drinking and smoking and not really doing nothing to help the community. And so at a young age, I began to call out my older homeboys, look, let's do this, and we just start initiating fights within ourselves in order to see who was going to run the neighborhood and who could lead the neighborhood, who would follow who. And so this is where I became the most dangerous because I wanted people to follow me into what I wanted to do. And so those guys that were older than me, they either had to fight me or get with the program, or one of us was going to get killed. And we had a beating of the minds at that point. And so I changed a lot of things that I wanted to do in my neighborhood. And I started running my neighborhood at 16.
Alonzo, an amazing story so far. At 16, you're running the neighborhood for the Crips. We're going to wrap it up right now. We're going to pick up on the second segment. And those of our viewers who are watching, do not miss part 2 of Alonzo Dixon. This has been the Death or Prison podcast. But around here, we like to say, choose life.
I can change the world, feed one. One